Hi, everyone. We are going to be talking about a very interesting rum called the Bacardi 8-year-old. Now, Bacardi's always had kind of like an ambivalent relationship with the rum world ever since, let's say, the 1990s going forward. Now, before that, they were, of course, the rum, right? Everybody in the United States knew of it. Most people got their first drunk on it. The 151 was like a staple of the high-end bar industry for getting people drunk. And they pioneered this whole thing in the 1800s of making a light, easily drinkable, very easily miscible aged rum that didn't break the bank. Now, the problem with that in the modern era is that even though it has always become and seen as a cocktail mixing ingredient, and that's where its fame on these gargantuan sales they had were made, we won't discuss the whole business about their being kicked out of Cuba, and then having, pilfering the Havana Club brand name in the United States and all the other shenanigans. That we won't go into that. There are enough books on that you can satisfy your curiosity, or even Wikipedia for that matter. But here's the thing. As the wave of premiumization started to become more than just a small cloud on the horizon in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, and then in the 2010s for sure, the whole business about the gold, the Reserva, the white Superior, the Blancos, and so on, they were just, like they were bottom feeders. They always have been. And gradually over time, Bacardi decided that they needed to make an aged rum of their own to put into the market, and they came up with this, the Ocho. Now, there were others over time, whether they were special editions or, aged editions that didn't last for too long. But for the most part, the premium aged rum for quite a long time was this, the 8-year-old, which has now been superseded. And the very fact that it's been as successful as it has been is suggested by the fact that now there's a whole range of these things, not just the Cuatro, the 4-year-old, the Ocho, the 8-year-old, and the Diez. This was all a rebranding and remarketing exercise done about 4 or 5 years ago. But now, in the 2020s, what we're seeing is actually several editions of the Ocho itself that are aged in different barrels, whether it's whiskey barrels, Marsala casks, or different other things. I think there were 3 or 4 of them out there. And I've always kind of resisted buying them, but the truth is one of these days I really should. But be that as it may, this is an older edition. This is the original 8-year-old that I had reviewed, I don't know, 2012 or thereabouts. I did actually taste it again as the Ocho to name it as a key rum of the world, because I really did think it was such a great mid-range rum that satisfied all things. Today, we're going to just take a harder look at it to see whether it's really worth it. Now, having tasted both the 8-year-old and the Ocho side by side not too long ago, I know there's really not that much difference between the two. It takes a better snoot and a better palate than mine to really dissect out the minutiae of exactly what makes each one different from the other. Let's just take them as being as close as damn it, and we can go from there. So, Bacardi is made in the Spanish style, which to them means essentially column still distillate. The distillate is, and the fermentation and the source doesn't really matter. The real skill comes from the maestros roneros, who basically do the blending after the fact from the barrel-aged stuff that they've got left behind. So in other words, the fact that they make it out of a huge industrial column still doesn't make no never mind to them. They basically just take that, and once they have that raw spirit, then they start going at it. And they put it in their barrels, and then they watch it over many years, and then they kind of like blend it and taste it and see what they can do with it. And eventually they come out with something fairly consistent that they can mass market, such as this. Right. So having said that, the Bacardi kind of conforms to most of the markers of what we would term the Spanish style. You've always got that leather and wood and smoky kind of taste to it that comes from the barrel. Absolutely, yes, you're going to get vanillas. You're going to get a little bit of spices such as cinnamon, very faint. You're going to get some really nicely cured old leather, like, I don't know, I guess a pair of chaps maybe, or a pair of saddlebags, or a really good leather bag that's been used for many years and lovingly polished with dubbin or something like that. It's that kind of smell. But it's also got a certain amount of fruits in it too. Most of the time, these are things like very ripe peaches, very ripe other fruits such as mango, stone fruit, and so on. You do get a kind of like a delicate citrus line coming through the end of it as well. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. That's not bad. Bacardi, for some reason, seems to think that if they ever go beyond 40%, the heavens will open and Zeus will rain down fire from thunderbolts from above and the earth will open and Atlantis will fall. I don't know what the fuck it is that they think. There are very few rums that they make that are over 40%. There's a couple at 43. I have seen stuff that's a bit more powerful, but they're so vanishingly rare that for the mass market stuff that you see everywhere, you can pretty much assume that 40% is there to stay and they're going to keep it that way. Whether that is because they can eke out more volume is another question entirely. The problem that raises with a rum like this is that you can taste that it has more in its pockets than just its hands. And that if it was made just a bit stronger, the taste would be better. You do get those ripe golden honey tastes to it. It does go nicely on the tongue. It does really taste right, quite nice. It isn't all that sharp. Even at 8 years old, it's doing really well for itself at 40%. There are tastes of pralines and cookies and leather and smoke and very ripe fruit again. Mostly of the yellow and brown variety. Sapodillas, if you really want to get creative with it, right? There's a little bit of tartness, not a whole lot. A little bit of brine, not a whole lot. I mean, it's like the 8-year-old, I always thought of it as something like the middle beer. It's not too hot, not too cold, not too soft, not too hard, not too sharp, not too soft. You know, it's all those things. It's like perfectly situated in the middle, and it should sell better than it does. I don't find most people appreciate Bacardi for what they have actually accomplished, but that's probably because their mass market dronish crap tends to drown out everything else. And it's only when Americans go to Europe and see the shit that they have on sale there and they buy some of these incredible uber-aged independent bottles that they say, oh my God, where was this all my life? Well, it's always been there. Bacardi just didn't allow it to get to you. You know, but be that as it may, it's a huge seller. It sells everywhere. I found it in Central Asia. I found it in South Asia. I found it all over the Balkans. I found it in, you know, illicitly in the Middle East. You know, there's just a whole bunch of places. And we won't even talk about the Western world where it's pretty much as ubiquitous as all get out. I do think it's a very good rum on its own terms, but I cannot score it very high because there's so much more quality stuff above it. And basically what they do is they inhabit the inoffensive middle and the low end. This will score 82. It will never go higher than that for me. I do like it. It's great as an all-rounder, but at any one thing, it just fails. It's a good for a mixer. It's decent for a sipper. You can have it. You don't spend a whole shitload of money on it, largely because of all the subsidies. But does that make it a great rum? Yeah, it makes it a key rum, sure, because of what it is. Does it make it something that I always want to have on my shelf? Nope, sorry, not really. And that's where we're going to leave it today. Take care. Bye-bye.